I forget to take this off before recording, and it makes a kind of distracting noise. But I think it would make for a good trigger, so I'll just cut to after when I've taken it off. Okay, now today we are whispering about the most interesting kangaroo. Thank you so much to whoever it was that suggested we should read about the kangaroo. I love this animal, of course. As you might know, I am Australian. That is my accent, if you're wondering. And I love the Australian environment, as most Australians grow up to have a unique connection with the environment, just because it's everywhere. Now, when I say that unique connection, I mean it's an ingrained part of Australian culture. But if you want to look even more deeply to Indigenous Australian culture, of course I'm not Indigenous Australian, but in Indigenous Australian culture, the worship, the deity, almost is the actual land. Indigenous studies in university was awesome, and I loved it so much, and I've been thinking about reading a Wikipedia series dedicated to it, but I'm not sure yet. Anyway, that's a fair ramble before I start. But yeah, I've seen many kangaroos in my time. They're quite cute. They vary in sizes. They can be dangerous. They can be violent, so if you are a tourist, if one comes up to you, it's probably fine. But I would not get too confident about around the ones that are significantly large. They can get to 6 foot or 6'6". They can get very large. Anyway, the kangaroo is a marsupial from the family Macrobus. Macropodidae. Macropods, meaning large foot. In common use, the term is also used to describe the largest species from this family, the red kangaroo, as well as the antelope kangaroo, the eastern grey kangaroo, and western grey kangaroo. Kangaroos are indigenous to Australia and New Guinea. The Australian government estimates that 34.3 million kangaroos lived within the commercial harvest areas of Australia in 2011, up from 25.1 million one year earlier. Wow, that's a massive population jump. Kangaroos are quite interesting because they are one of our staple animals, one of our kind of, national animals. And there are many different types, but a lot of the types, there are heaps of them to a point where they almost become a pest, which is crazy to say, considering that they are the national animal of the country, or one of them. I forget what's our official animal. But yeah, whereas I think in a lot of countries the national animal is usually an endangered one. Perhaps that's another whispering Wikipedia we can do in the future. Are national and emblem animals that represent a country. Okay, as with the terms wallaroo and wallaby, kangaroo refers to a paraphyletic grouping of species. All three refer to the members of the same taxonomic family, Macrobus, and are distinguished according to size. The largest species in the family are called kangaroos, and the smallest are generally called wallabies. The term wallaroos refers to species of an intermediate size. I saw on a Australian names, as you'll know, didgeridoo, kangaroo, wallaby, wallamoo, you know, that mostly comes from a kind of a little bit of an altered English version of the indigenous language that was spoken in that area that coined the term, or that the English colonizer asked for and got some response, and that became the name. So it is from a different language. Kangaroo, it doesn't sound English, and that's because it isn't in origin. But yeah, and there is not one Australian indigenous language. There are really many. There are, in the history of the country, probably, I think it was over 1,000 Australian languages, and I think there are records for multiple hundred, but I think extant, only spoken indigenous languages, I think there are 5 or 6 main ones. The indigenous language spoken around my area is Eora. Okay. There are also the tree kangaroos, another type of macropod, which inhabit the tropical rainforests of New Guinea, far northeastern Queensland, and some of the islands in the region. A general idea of the relative size of these informal terms could be: wallabies have a head and body length of 45 to 105 centimeters and a tail length of 33 to 75 centimeters. The dwarf wallaby, the smallest known of all known macropod species, is 46 centimeters long and weighs 1.6 kilograms. Wallabies are very, very cute. And if you're in an area with a lot of wallabies, they outnumber you, but people frequent there often. They may come up to you and beg for food, or just look expectantly for food, especially if they're in a group. A lot of the time they're a bit more confident to ask for food, and they are quite cute. Tree kangaroos, ranging from Lamont's tree kangaroo, have a body and head length of 48 to 65 centimeters, a tail of 60 to 74 centimeters, a weight of 7.2 kilograms, which is 16 pounds for males, and 5.9 kilograms, which is 13 pounds for females. To the grizzled tree kangaroo. I don't know if I've seen a grizzled one. I can't tell the difference between most tree kangaroos. With a length of 75 to 90 centimeters, which is 30 to 35 inches, and a weight of 8 to 15 kilograms, which is 18 to 33 pounds. Wallaroos. The black wallaroo, the smallest of the two species, with a tail length of 60 to 70 centimeters and a weight of 19 to 22 kilograms. I don't know how many wallaroos I've seen. And 19 to 22 kilograms, which is 41.8 to 48.5 pounds for males, and 13 kilograms, 28.6 pounds for females. And kangaroos. A large male can be 2 meters, which is 6 foot 7 feet tall, and weigh 90 kilograms, which is 200 pounds. Now, in terms of animals in general, the weight there doesn't seem like a lot. It is 6 foot 7, but you have to remember that the reason they're dangerous is they punch really, really, really hard with claws, and they go straight for your face, and they actually punch, and they do double leg kicks where they Australian flora and fauna. It is amazing. It has very, very complicated evolution. It is very unique and beautiful, but also a lot of it you have to show some respect and try to seek some knowledge on before you interact with them a bit too much. Of course, if you're in a zoo or something like that, or a conservation park, the animals there will be used to you, and the likelihood of you getting hurt by them is very low. It'll only be from unintentional things. Now, let's keep going. Kangaroos have large, powerful hind legs, large feet adapted for leaping, a long muscular tail for balance, and a small head. Like most marsupials, female kangaroos have a pouch called a marsupium in which joeys complete postnatal development. Now, I don't know how much about kangaroos or marsupials you learn in other countries, but quickly for this, the idea of a pouch simply is that when a baby kangaroo is formed, they are like the size of a jelly bean, about the size of a jelly bean, and they are tiny, and they can kind of crawl into the pouch, and then they do the vast majority of their fetus level development there. For other animals like humans, half of the development that happens in the pouch would have happened before birth, but I think because of the unique structure of a kangaroo and its need to continue to hop and stuff and not have hip problems, they have to give birth to very small young. So the pouch is kind of a logical step in evolution for having a smaller birth and having the development happen outside of you, not inside you. There you go. The large kangaroos have adapted much better than the smaller macropods to land clearing for pastoral agriculture and habitat changes brought to the Australian landscape by humans. Many of the smaller species are rare and endangered, while kangaroos are relatively plentiful. That is true if you go to wide open areas in Australia, like hills, pastures, stuff like that. You'll probably quite easily find a kind of a group of large or medium to large kangaroos just sitting there. They sit in very funny positions, and they just chill out. But to see smaller ones are usually more rare, and they're a little bit more vulnerable to be out in the open. The kangaroo is a symbol of Australia and appears on the Australian coat of arms and on some of its currency, and is used as a logo for some of Australia's most well-known organisations, such as Qantas, which is our kind of not premium but closer to premium air service as compared to others. And as the roundel of the Australian Air Force, the kangaroo is important to both Australian culture and the national image, and consequently there are numerous popular culture references. Wild kangaroos are shot for meat, leather hides, and to protect grazing lands. Although controversial, kangaroo meat has perceived health benefits for human consumption compared with traditional meats due to low levels of fat on kangaroos. Yes, that's quite interesting. It is controversial. Depending on where you are, I do actually recommend purchasing kangaroo meat, but it depends where you are. So there are a lot of areas in Australia where they do pest control and use that meat and then sell it in bulk, via generic retail stores, which is awesome because it means there's a market for eradicating a pest, which means it's much more likely to get eradicated and the numbers to be controlled. In terms of the lower fat content, that does seem to be true from what I've had. You need to cook kangaroo meat a little bit more, with more care than something like beef, just because the Plus, of course, less fat means you can't dry it out as much, but you still need to cook it thoroughly, so there you go. But yes, kangaroo meat is a mainstream thing at normal Australian grocery stores, and you can find it at most of the generic larger retail grocers in the meat section, if you're interested. Now to terminology. The word kangaroo derives from the Gugu Yimithir word kangaroo, referring to the eastern grey kangaroos. The name was first recorded as kangaroo on the 12th of July 1770 in an entry in the diary of Sir Joseph Banks. This occurred at the site of modern Cooktown on the banks of the Endeavour River, where the HMS Endeavour, under the command of Lieutenant James Cook, was beached for almost 7 weeks to repair damage sustained on the Great Barrier Reef. Cook first referred to kangaroos in his diary entry of the 4th of August. Gugu Yimithir is the language of the people of the area. A common myth about the kangaroo's English name is that it was a Gugu Yimithir phrase for I don't know or I don't understand. According to this legend, Cooks and Banks were exploring the area when they happened upon the animal. They asked a nearby local what the creatures were called, and the local responded kangaroo, meaning I don't know / can't understand, which Cook then took to be the name of the creature. However, anthropologist Walter Roth was trying to correct this legend as far back as in 1898, but few took note until 1972 when linguist John B. Haviland, in his research with the Gungu Yimithir people, was able to fully confirm the proper etymology. There are similar, more credible stories of naming confusions, such as with the Yucatan Peninsula. Kangaroos are often colloquially referred to as roos. Yep. Male kangaroos are called bucks, boomers, jacks, or old men. Females are does, flyers, or jills, and the young ones are joeys. The collective noun for a group of kangaroos is a mob, court, or troop. Now we go to taxonomy and description, so we can get a little bit of an idea about the kangaroo. There are 4 extant species that are commonly referred to as kangaroos. The red kangaroo, Os rufus, is the largest surviving marsupial anywhere in the world. It occupies the arid and semi-arid centre of the country. The highest population densities of the red kangaroo occur in the rangelands of western New South Wales. Red kangaroos are commonly mistaken as the most abundant species of kangaroo, but eastern greys actually have a larger population. A large male can be 2 meters, 6'7", and weigh 90 kilograms, which is 200 pounds. The eastern grey kangaroo, Macrobus giganteus, is less well known than the red outside Australia, but the most often seen, as its range covers the fertile eastern part of the country. The range of the eastern grey kangaroo extends from the top of Cape York Peninsula in North Queensland down to Victoria, as well as areas of southeastern Australia and Tasmania. You are definitely much more likely to see a grey kangaroo if you are to see or visit pastures or something like that, if you're around the coastal areas of Australia, which is where the majority of the population lives, by the way. So if you're visiting Victoria and you're driving through all of the open fields as the such as farmland where forest and woodland habitats are limited in size or abundance. Now moving to the western grey kangaroo, the Macrobus Folignosis is slightly smaller again at about 54 kilograms, 119 pounds, for a larger male. It is found in the southeastern part of Western Australia, South Australia near the coast, and the Murray-Darling Basin. The highest population densities occur in the Western Riverina district of New South Wales and in the western areas of the Nullarbor Plain in Western Australia. Populations may have declined, particularly in agricultural areas. The species has a high tolerance to the plant toxin sodium fluoroactate, which indicates a possible origin from the southwestern region of Australia. And the antelope kangaroo, Osfranta antilopinus, is essentially the far northern equivalent of the eastern grey and western grey kangaroos. It is sometimes referred to as the antelope wallaroo, but in behaviour and habitat it is more similar to the red. Eastern grey and west kangaroos. Like them, it is a creature of the grassy plains and woodlands and gregarious. Its name comes from its fur, which is similar in colour and texture to that of an antelope. Characteristically, the noses of males swell behind the nostrils. This enlarges nasal passages and allows them to release more heat in hot and humid climates. Interesting, I didn't know that. In addition, there are about 50 smaller macropods closely related to the kangaroos in the family Macropodidae. Kangaroos and other macropods share a common ancestor with the Phalangeridae from the Middle Miocene. This ancestor was likely arboreal and lived in the canopies of the extensive forest that covered most of Australia at that time, when the climate was much wetter and fed on leaves and stems. From the late Miocene through the Pliocene and into the Pleistocene, the climate got drier, which led to a decline of forests and expansion of grasslands. At this time, there was a radiation of macropods characterized by enlarged body size and adaptation to the low-quality grass diet, with the development of the foregut fermentation. The most numerous early macropods, the Balbaridae and the Bulongomyinae, became extinct in the late Miocene around 5 to 10 MYA. There is dispute over the relationships of the two groups of modern kangaroos and rat kangaroos. Some argue that the Balbarians were the ancestors of rat kangaroos and the Bulongomyins were the ancestors of kangaroos, while others hold the contrary view. Interesting. Now, we can learn more about the Bulongomyins in the next episode of Whispering Wikipedia. It's just going to have a little bit of a quick read about that, and then it's going to go to comparison with wallabies, and then we've got biology and behaviour, interaction with human emblems and popular culture, and finishing on meat. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Whispering Wikipedia. I enjoy learning about things, as you probably know by now, and I enjoy having your company, seeing your comments, and seeing what you want me to read about next. So if you have an idea for what I should read about in the next episode,